Hello?
Miss Lestico, guess what time it is?
What time?
It's time for math!
Yay!
What time is it, Miss Lestico?
It's time for math.
Oh my gosh, and speaking of time, we're still learning about time. Actually, it's our last day for time.
Wow. Well, we have practiced a lot with time to the hour and half hour. And well, what's our target today, Ms. Lynn?
It's still, I can tell time to the half hour.
That's right. And today we're going to practice everything that we've learned. We're going to look at a few last minute really tricky clocks before we see how much you've learned about telling time to the hour this unit.
Well, let's go ahead and review what some of our anchor charts have looked like. I remember when we were telling time to the hour, my minute hand or my longer hand was pointing directly towards the 12. That's o'clock, so it was 00. But with time to the half hour, my minute hand or my longer hand was pointing down to the 6, which was 30 minutes or half past the hour. What about those hour hands, Miss Lestico?
Well, I know with time to the hour, our hour hand is pointing directly at that hour number, telling us it started that hour. And so, of course, that goes first when we're writing it in our digital clock. But with our time to the half hour, it's a little bit trickier because, well, we've started moving into that hour. And so our hour hand is getting ready to go to the next hour, but we have to remember it's still in that backyard, still in that hour before. And so we have to go backwards to figure out which hour we're going to write for our digital clock.
That's right. It's so important to pay close attention to those hour and minute hands because that's really what's going to help you determine what time it is. Well, Miss Lestico, do you think we should take a look at some clocks and figure out what time it is?
We have some clocks for you to look at.
Okay, Miss Lestico, why don't you go first? Tell us, what time is it?
Okay, well, looking at this time, I know the first thing to look for is my minute hand. And remember, that's the really, really long hand. So I'm going to look. Oh, well, this hand is pointing all the way through the hour number. And so that means it would be the minute hand. And, well, it's pointing at the 6. We know when it points at the 6, we have to count by 5s and know that it is 30 minutes. And my hour hand is pointing in between the 10 and the 11. Now, that means that I have to go backwards to the number it would have started with, which would be 10. So it would be 10:30.
Good job. Okay, well, the next two clocks look very similar, Miss Lestico, so I'm going to have to go really slow and take my time because the arrows look very similar. But I notice on this clock, this arrow or hand that's pointing all the way through the 12 is longer than this hand that's pointing towards the 6. So I know that this top arrow is my minute hand because it's longer. It's going all the way through the 12, which means it's o'clock. And I remember o'clock is 00. So I'm going to put 00 for my minutes. Well, if it's an o'clock, then my hour hand right here is pointing directly towards a number, and it's pointing directly towards the 6. So this clock is showing 6 o'clock.
Well, my next one looks almost the exact same, Miss Lime. I have an arrow pointing straight down, and I have an arrow pointing almost straight up. But I can tell that this hand is between the 12 and the 1, which means that it's no longer starting the hour. It's kind of moved past it. So,
and Miss Lestico, I noticed that the hand on top is shorter, so it must be the hour hand. But over here, that wasn't the case.
That's right. This one was definitely shorter. It's not even touching the hour numbers, while this one is going straight through them down to the bottom of the clock to help tell the minutes. And so, well, if my minute hand is pointing straight down, that means that it's going to tell 30 minutes. And my hour hand is pointing in between the 12 and the 1. Now, I know we go backwards, and it would be 12:30.
Okay, well, now we have some digital times, and it's our job to draw the hands on these analog clocks. Miss Lestico, why don't you go first?
All right, so my first digital time reads 8 o'clock. Now, I'm going to start with my minutes of o'clock. I know that means that the minute hand is pointing directly up at the 12 because, well, it's the start of an hour. So So I'm going to draw my minute hand all the way through my hour time to the very top. And if it's 8 o'clock, that means that it's going to point directly at the 8 to show that it's starting the 8 hour. And so I'm going to point my hour hand directly at the 8, make it a little bit shorter, and put my arrow on the end.
Okay, well, the next clock says 6:30. So I'm going to follow Miss Lestico's strategy of starting with my minutes first. And 6:30, that means it has 30 minutes. So I know if it's 30 minutes, my minute hand needs to be pointing down directly towards the 6. So I'm going to take my hour hand and draw it all the way through the 6 because it's my longer hand. And if I go through the 6, I definitely will be longer. Now my hour, let's see, it says 6, but it's not a 6 o'clock. It's 6:30, which means it's half past the 6. So I need to find my 6 and go halfway past it. Oh, it'll be in between the 6 and the 7. I'm going to draw a little dot up here between the 6 and the 7. I don't want to go through the numbers because remember, my hour hand is shorter. So now I can connect it to the center of my clock, and I have 6:30.
Well, this very last clock reads 3:30. So starting with my minutes of 30 minutes, I know that that's going to be pointing directly down at the 6, and I'm making that my long minute hand. And then I have 3:30. Well, that means that it's 30 minutes past 3 o'clock, and so it's going to be halfway between the 3 and the 4. So I'm going to put my dot, and I'm going to draw it back to my center, and then draw an arrow to show 3:30. It's your turn.
On Seesaw, you are going to have your time to the half-hour summative assessment. Oh, it's okay. You know what you're doing, and you've been doing a great job this whole time. You're going to have some analog clocks that have a time, and you need to write it digitally. You're going to have some digital clocks that tell you time, and you're going to need to draw those hands. And then you're going to have one question about what time Miss Jones does something. And you're going to have to show us analog and digital times.
Don't worry, you're going to do an amazing job, and I can't wait to see all that you've learned about telling time to the half hour. And of course, so we can see your wonderful work, click that green check mark when you're done. Good luck!